everything before the podcast is usually pretty gold. And I think what's funny about that, since we've gone through this transformation, and like I was saying beforehand, that 70% of projects, and it would be interesting to see how much this has changed. But my assumption is that we're getting better because we're not following the tried and true methods. We're trying new things. And so then what happens is, instead of service management being the onus, like, hey, we need to get our poop in a group, we need to like get our operations going smoothly. The next step then becomes, well, now we're actually able to change stuff successfully without failing 70% of the time. And so then the onus then becomes on the business to innovate and change. And now we're actually able to move stuff. So the people that didn't take time to put in those foundations are that much further behind. And they won't be able to deliver. Well, maybe they will be able to deliver, but they won't be able to deliver as much.
And by the time they do, the train would have left the station and the business has moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when technology enables new capabilities, it raises what is just basic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you think of your car driving now. The concept of navigation systems in a car and taking you from one place to the other. We get really excited about self-driving cars, but we forget just what a phenomenal invention the combustion engine is, and tubeless tires and power steering.
And Google Maps, just being able to have the data to drive safely.
But I'm even talking just like what is just absolutely rudimentary has just become. Right. Well, of course you have that.
Yeah. It's become augmented over time.
I was talking to a colleague, one of our sales engineers, and he was telling me his daughter was asking him, "Dad, what's that book on the table?" And he picks it up and he goes, "It's the phone book." He goes, "What is it?" He goes, "Oh, it's got people's telephone numbers in it." And so she picks it up and she goes, "It doesn't have any of my friends' cell phone numbers in it."
And thus, it's irrelevant, right?
And it just we started talking. It was like, now think about that for a second. I'm installing in my house 25 to 50-year lifetime light bulbs. So that means my kids have the potential of getting married and having children, them going off to college, and never seeing a light bulb being changed. They'll be, "Grandpa, why are you on that ladder? What are you doing?" A light bulb, right? Think about the light bulb jokes that will go with that. How many Generation Zs does it take to change a light bulb?
That's
it's
crazy.
very true. I mean, even in the speaking of technologies in cars, they're saying that within the next 7 years, all the base models will now include the automatic braking, because now all the cars have the sensors and the cameras, so that if they detect a collision, it will force the brake and reduce collisions by 40%. That's crazy.
And imagine how this will rock the insurance industry.
Yeah, they're gonna cry.
What's funny is the I think what they're called OBIs. They're the little sensors that are in your cars, and you can hook up a little computer now to it. Those machines. My dad was a mechanic. Those machines back 20 years ago were thousands and thousands of dollars. You can buy them on Amazon now for $99. The sensors have been in the cars for decades, which is really kind of forward thinking. It's like, if you look at our modern technology needs, the consumer may not have been ready to do diagnostic data on their cars or use app phones for their cars, but it didn't prevent them from putting in the capabilities along the way. And I think that kind of, to me, was a little bit like DevOps. Putting in the sensors along the way. We may not know if we can detect real-time business service failure or user impact, but anything we can do to heighten the understanding and build for future capabilities will help make sure that we're overcoming the gap of, we don't know what demand is going to be like, right? We go back to the business requirements that are used or not collected correctly. Well, that's because businesses are changing too fast. They don't know.
Yeah, dude. That is such a good topic actually for project management and for service and for IT in general and tech in general, software design in general.
Business design in general. Eric Ries's Lean Startup, which was probably one of the most eye-opening books that I've ever read. It was the fact that you sit back and say, how did that person come up with that business strategy? Like, you just pick a phenomenal business you think of today. They didn't start that way. Amazon, right, whose market cap exceeded Walmart last year, was a bookstore in 2003.
Yeah.
Nicholas Carr said IT doesn't matter, and people are going to be buying technology services over the internet. And everybody gnashed their teeth and said, you're a heathen. How could you say this? Of course IT matters. And now look at us. 13 years later, we're buying services over the internet. From who? The bookstore. The bookstore that said, hey, I like what this guy's saying. Maybe we should do that.
Exactly. Exactly. I think, Amazon is pretty interesting. Someone actually predicted that they're going to buy Boston Dynamics from the investment firm, or Alphabet actually owns Boston Dynamics now. And so they're apparently going to own these scary walking robots that we've seen all over the internet for the past 5 years.
But going back to books, right, for a quick second, even the book Flash Foresight by Daniel Burrus talks exactly about that. How do you uncover these hidden possibilities? If the Googles and Alphabets didn't acquire these companies, this is why. They have Flash Foresight. They want to uncover hidden opportunities. That's how they can innovate. And that's what more and more organizations need to do, I think. And the auto industry is a great example of one that's been doing that well as well.
So you say Flash Foresight. Are you saying like just being able to think ahead? Is it business analytics? What is it?
Daniel looks at disruptive trends.
Right.
You can see the predictiveness of it. And most of his trends, and I subscribe to his newsletter, well, he's a very insightful guy. His trends consistently look at physical barriers. So whether, we talk about these robots or anything from a delivery standpoint, it's always based on physical limitations. If you find a physical limitation that can be replaced with digital, you have a gold mine.
Interesting.
Look at Netflix. People forget that Netflix business model was not delivering streaming video. That wasn't
failing.
They mailed the DVDs. They wanted to, their first physical barrier they removed, not get out of your house to go to the DVD store to rent the DVD.
Yeah.
We'll bring it to you. Set up an online automation system and just plug in your stuff, and we'll keep sending them to you. Right. The second physical thing is we don't want to send it through a carrier. We want to send it through network convergence.
Now, I want to know who's going to beat the physical restrictions of the human body.
Well, I'll tell you the next Netflix thing that they have to fix is the physical limitation of me searching through the ridiculous interface to try to find something worth watching.
Yeah. Can I just say it? I just want to say it.
Terrible. I tweeted today. I don't know what I had put on as a joke on my television a one of those fireplace movies where it's just the crackling fireplace, because I'm living in Tampa now, and my daughter was complaining on Snapchat about how freezing it was in Boston, so I put the fireplace on the television. And because I watched that, somehow I want Pulp Fiction, and I forget what the other one was. It was like, Walk in the Clouds or something like that.
Because you watched the fireplace, you want to watch Pulp Fiction.
The fireplace film.
There you go. And other companies like Amazon, I feel really emulates that physical barrier thing right now, right? They tried with the button. I would be curious to know how well that button concept is doing. Then they've got the Amazon, what is it, Echo? What was the name of the?
Yeah, Echo.
Yeah, right? Same thing. And so what they're trying to do is eliminate that physical, I need to go on my device and order something, with just give it a command, and now I can do more things outside of just order stuff off of Amazon. Yeah. So it is fascinating.
That advertising was just terrible. A bunch of white hipsters all asking for the same stuff. It's interesting. You can tie your Amazon Echo to your Fitbit now and have the Echo remind you to exercise.
That might be your subjective view of advertising. That might be their target market, because otherwise, I think other people will look at white hipsters and say, yeah, they would buy that, not me.
Yeah, Netflix needs to expose their catalog to Google so that when you search for, well, I'm sure that you were watching Teletubbies. When you search for Teletubbies, it just presents to you Netflix, Teletubbies, watch season 1 now, click.
Yeah, it's
That's
there
sweet.
was what was that was it Get Glue? Was that the social interaction media watching? You would tie it to some of the things. I think it was called Get Glue. Um,
Oh, and it would suggest other things to
Dude, I
you,
think
right?
that warrants a Google search.
yeah, it would search other things for you, but it was this kind of social thing, and the whole premise was is to tell other people so you to, but they missed it, right? Obviously, it didn't take off because no one knows what I'm talking about. Um,
Yeah.
except probably Chris Dancy's probably still using it. It's one of these things where they missed it, which is it should be I should be saying, hey, here's I don't really care about my friends what they think of it, but it's like the whole Rotten Tomatoes rating thing, like that just never really took off because even Prime, I can search by stars. Go search the 5-star movies on Prime. They're the worst movies because they're rated by 4 people. You can't search ratings of over 1,000 people who watched this thing, right? And that's a little simple Boolean search language that doesn't exist from the user experience. So we still have lots of physical limitations to the experiences we have in life, right? Um, and uh, and I think there's always opportunities there. And I think as we progress in digital transformation, we'll see those things. But ITSM people in particular don't see it that way.
I would think that there would be some other things too, like not just physical, but like attention based. So like you're talking about these reviews, right? The attention problem is that you can't get people to actually fill out a review of something after they bought it. Well, why not give them 5 cents off their next purchase? Or you love Teletubbies season 1, write a review, and we'll show you Teletubbies season 2 at half the
Right, Groupon
cost.
does that, right? So Groupon sends me discount codes if I rate the products or services that I recently bought on Groupon. So I would say that they're a good example of taking advantage of that. But even then, it's not audible.
Yeah. It's
You know,
still a terrible experience
it
too.
doesn't pop up a notification on my phone that says click here and voice tell me what you think of it. I still have to go and type, which is a physical interaction.
Yeah.
Even though voice is a less of a physical interaction, right?
Or what would be another good one is if you captured your friends' reviews of things, right? Like think of these reviews and feedback as valuable data, and so the person who doesn't give it up, someone else can give it up for you in a different way. So Hooper says he likes Teletubbies. I go in and I log in and I say Hooper likes Teletubbies, and then I get the credit for it.
And then before you know it, I'm just going to log in and say Hooper likes Teletubbies and
I can't.
Dan likes Barney, and I'll just make up a whole bunch of stuff.
If Teletubby starts getting recommended on my Netflix because of this podcast,
We're all in trouble.
Netflix are in cahoots here because there's no way you can talk about that on a Hangout.
So we're hashtagging Teletubbies as a part of the posting today.
Brokeback Mountain, awesome. Thank you. It's true though because we have a sensitivity about what our preferences are. We want technology and systems to be intelligent for us, but we don't necessarily want to be social about all those things all the time.
Yeah, it's sort of the uncanny valley for suggestions. Like if my aunt dies and my cousin private messages me on Facebook and says that she's dead, and then I get an advertisement for funeral directors, F. Especially if it's for a private message or through a private message.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
and I think that's another example of redefining the boundaries of privacy, right? And this goes right back into so many things that have happened over the last few months, all the way up into including the FBI and Apple battle, right? Where I don't know whose side to take, but I tend to. It's kind of a moral versus. It's two sides of the issue. Both sides are kind of moral
You
about
know
it.
what side you should take for us? Your side.
Yeah, it's
But
true.
you know they do that, right? I mean, it's when I posted about my daughter's spine surgery last week, I started getting advertisements from BioSpine, which is this local surgical office place here in Florida. You know, so I get it. You know, it's the same thing. Reasons why Gmail reads your Gmails and advertises you based on the conversations you're having in Gmail. Someone's paying for it, right? I'm not paying for Facebook. I'm not paying for Gmail, so someone's got to pay for it. I get that. But when it comes to the auto intelligence of your needs and desires, that's still a pretty big, tricky thing. I don't think any technology's really kind of figured out. You know, Zappos tried and then stopped people with shoe advertisements for the next 3 months of their online experiences, right? So it's I don't know, it's changing. But to bring it full circle back to knowledge and intelligence, you know, think of how much I sat today in some service desk training about knowledge management, and the trainer was joking around about a CAB, KAB, a knowledge advisory board, and I was cringing, and I was like, you know, and I kind of teased him. I said, dude, you've got to watch our webinars. I mean, I know you were joking, and I know it's kind of like we want these, you know, to approve articles. I said, but we are so far beyond that. You know, we have to have real-time collaboration, sharing. I don't want to know what article Barron wrote. I want to know which one he used to solve particular problems that I'm solving.
Yeah.
Right.
And never limit the barrier to entry on that stuff. I mean, that's one of the reasons that platforms take off with content, because it's just easy to create, and so people do it.
Yeah. But you get sprawl though too, and then you start getting technical debt because you don't have common data dictionaries and common language.
Well, knowledge debt is a little less scary than technical debt.
Right.
Right. Like, imagine here's a use case that everyone has far too often. There are 12 people in a meeting. 6 of them are taking notes. All of them share their notes. All 6 of them captured the same thing. But really, the knowledge debt is when no one takes notes.
Yeah.
Like, it would be nice if you could correlate all that information together, and of course there are interns and services for that, but they cost money and take time, and there's a lot of effort involved, right?
Have you guys used Trello for meetings?
Trello for meetings?
Not yet.
So we've started doing that, especially when we do like product review, or even for our customer advisory boards. We now use Trello. So as they're throwing out concerns or issues or product suggestions, we instantly put it in Trello and then drop it into the right column based on that. So it's great because everybody's watching it real time. So you're seeing what notes aren't being captured. You're seeing what data points.
I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, imagine how much more effective meetings would be if everyone's actively engaged, and part of their active engagement is not having to worry about capturing every single note, but what's relevant to them, and then all of a sudden you've got a rich set of notes that have not even just, you know, the long borne out notes, but are already turned into actions and in places that make sense, whether it's features or defects or actions or improvements.
Do you all use Trello after the meeting then too, Hooper?
Yeah. It stays as a running continuous discussion thread.
Huh, that's really cool.
It's organized. It's cleaned up and organized then for the next meeting, because we don't call them CABs, customer advisory boards. We call them PACs, product advisory councils. I don't know why, but they meet monthly, and so it's cleaned up. And then the next month's meeting, customers come back in and they can see what we discussed last time, and we can add notes into any progress that's been made, or if we've addressed the issues, or if we've brought it into our roadmap, or if we've denied it and rejected it and said
Like that.
You know. Yeah, it is. It's visual.
You call it a pack because you just need a name for it. Otherwise, no one will show up. They'll be like, "The what? We have to go to the meeting with the product, and the people, and the customer."
I want to go to the advisory council. It makes me sound important.
Yes.
That's really interesting. We use Google Docs for the same thing, so you can. The nice thing about Google Docs, what I wish Trello had that Google Docs has, is the ability to see who is doing things and where they're doing them at. Because that, like what you said, that was an interesting comment. What notes aren't being captured?
Yeah.
And like with Google Docs, you can see where everyone's cursor is. So if someone says something and no one's cursor moves and no one types, did it really get said?
If a word is spoken and Google Docs is not updated, then it really gets said.
Well, and I think actually that's where a lot of this collaboration comes from, is that people are afraid of losing their ideas.
Mm.
Because a lot of good stuff can be said randomly, like, I don't know, before a podcast, for example, and then it never gets captured, and we feel like that is value being left on the table.
Yeah, you know, it's funny too. It's because it also too changes the cultural aspect. I think this is why when DevOps talks about culture and communications over process and control, it makes people feel more engaged and more valued. And I'll give you a personal example. Like in my role in product management, there wasn't a lot of interaction with the sales engineers. So the sales engineers at Landesk, there's an ITSM, what they call advocacy group. So those sales engineers who have tried to focus on the ITSM suite of products, because they support all products, but really make that focus. They meet every day, actually at 3:30 on Fridays, right after this podcast, they meet. And I usually come in right after we finish the podcast, I jump on that call. And I also join their Slack channel. And I comment on their Slack channel. And over the past couple months, there's been this real buzz like, oh, Hooper cares. You know, Hooper cares, Hooper cares, Hooper cares. And I was kind of like, dudes, I cared. Last year I flew on a plane all over the place. And you're saying like flying around the country, I didn't care. But then it clicks, right? It's like, it's not your physical presence that has as much impact as your digital presence.
Oh, absolutely.
That's so true. That's a large part of why I work well with some people and why I don't work well with some people. If you don't have a digital presence, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The magic doesn't happen.
And when people get used to that and you stop it, they get concerned. Like the past few weeks, because of my personal home situation, I've not been as active on Twitter. And I've actually gotten a few notes from people saying, hey, everything okay? And some of these aren't Facebook friends, so they didn't see what was going on, you know? And it was just like, wow, was I that obnoxious on Twitter, or was I that consistent? Or I'm trying to figure out, like, you're always trying to balance that out. But it is digital presence.
Well, especially as more and more of our reach, right? Our networks are beyond just the physical people we see within our 25-mile radius, if that's where we used to go to work. And so I think it's important, and we have to seek ways to improve upon and expand our digital presence, because the reality is most organizations are shifting to either remote structures, or the businesses themselves are so much more global, and it's so important to stay connected. And that's, I think, an important investment, and why I still am so annoyed that so many companies block these types of apps and control this, because
email is so much better.
Yeah. Kill email.
Well, if you value your talent, you will realize that people do not fit into an 8 to 5. Our lives do not fit into these boxes that we have set, and really the only way to get people connected is to allow them to connect in places that aren't physical and aren't phone, and maybe not digital either. You know, St. Patrick's Day was yesterday, and one of the best conversations I had all day yesterday was when we went downstairs to the pub and had a pint.
Yeah.
You need to be open to that stuff, because if you don't have serendipity, then you will never challenge the norms, and you will never be able to challenge the physical boundaries of how we are delivering business, and that's how you hack business technology.
Great up.
We'll see you next week. Next week we're gonna start a new time, so I don't know how that all is gonna go, but we'll let you know on Twitter.
Exactly.
All right. Have a good week.
Great.